Let's get into it. Coach Colin here, Soul Not For Sale podcast, Joe Rogan, Billy Carson. I found this clip to be the most interesting. In this podcast, they touch on emerald tablets. They touch on things that happened 30,000 years ago. They touch on the Great Pyramids being power generators. They touch on the fact that 100 pyramids had sand poured over them just to hide them for some unknown reason, which neither of them talk about. They touch on people being fashioned from godlike beings. They touch on so much wildness in this podcast, but this one theory they both can agree is completely ridiculous and not to be touched on, not to be wasted any time on whatsoever. So I just found that very interesting. And the way that they both shoo it off, right down to the people who look into this theory haven't graduated from high school. So they're a little beneath, they can't comprehend. I found that very interesting coming from these two. You think they would be some of the most open people. And in fact, if you watch Joe Rogan regularly, if you take in Billy Carson's content regularly, they are two of the most open-minded people. But not on this topic. Kind of very interesting. Let's get into this, folks.
They created him an artificial being to go on this journey in the Epic of Gilgamesh. So they use that phrase several times in the tablets. But they said, no, wait. It was almost like that's not a good idea because in some ways it seems as if they had known that the idea of making these too many artificially created people wouldn't be a good idea. Now, they didn't go deeper than that, but you can see where we are today with AI and everything else and these robots that are coming. Maybe they knew something about that. But they decided to take a biological being and genetically modify and program that to do the work, and that's exactly what they did.
Well, if they really knew what we would be capable of and that we would be illogical, overpopulation would be a gigantic issue. Mm-hmm. And in many parts, I mean, it's not really that big of an issue here except for in cities, but in many parts of the world, it's the whole country. Yeah. The whole country is New York City, which is just fucking bonkers. Yeah. And you got to wonder, that's actually not true. It's like, it's not even that bad, even in China. China has a lot of open space. But when you're in those cities, they are massive, and they are filled with people. Yeah. And that is probably what you would imagine a higher being would do if it was like us, like kind of illogical and kind of a little bit reckless and has a little bit too much technology for the average person that didn't develop the technology. But all of a sudden you got some 85 IQ dope who has access to all the things that all these geniuses have created. Yeah. I mean, you could figure, we talked to Michio Kaku, he built a nuclear reactor in his house when he was a kid.
I heard about that. That was crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I know.
That's so crazy. But there's a lot of different stuff that you can do and have access to technology that is beyond anything you would ever be able to invent with your own mind. But because we share things across the board, you would imagine that if you were an enlightened being from another planet that's a million years more advanced than us, you'd go, I see where this one's going. You have that cousin who's an alcoholic and then he wins the lottery, like, oh shit, Derek just won the lottery. Fuck! This is going to be crazy. Derek's got $200 million. It's going to be fucking insane.
It's crazy. And they knew they were going outside their own guidelines and their own laws, their parameters, because they made a statement in the text. They said the creator of all is going to punish them, or they would have to answer to the creator of all for what they did here. So and that lets you know they weren't really gods. They knew themselves that they weren't the creator of the universe, but that they masqueraded as gods on this planet.
Just like we did when different versions of human civilization would find primitive tribes, like the cargo tribe,
cults.
The cargo cult that you talked about in your documentary. That is so fascinating that during World War II, planes landed on these remote places, and these people built mock planes to show like what the thing was that came to visit them that they thought were like gods.
Wild.
Do you think that if the Anunnaki are real and if Nibiru really exists and there's another planet with highly intelligent beings that are far more advanced than us, if that's the case, do you think there's more advanced and more, just like we are to chimpanzees, they are to us, and then another race is to them, and then it just keeps going on and on forever until you're God?
Absolutely. I believe there's levels to the game, just like there's levels in terms of how we live on this planet. We have the first world, second world, third world, just here on Earth. Now, magnify that as a fractal, as the universe as a whole. You have civilizations that are 1 million, 2 million, maybe even 1 billion years ahead, and every civilization progressing within the universe at a specific rate. So you can have beings that have already maybe even shed the corporeal corporeal bodies and only exist as beings of energetic light. And then you have everything all the way back down towards us. In the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, he actually says that he has achieved the ability to incarnate at will on and in the plane he desires. He claims to be able to incarnate whenever he wants and even into other dimensions, which is wild.
That's next level.
Yeah, that's next
But
level.
it does make sense that if we're capable of doing what we're doing, we were talking about your phone, the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra with zooms and all this different shit. That's magic to someone just 200 years ago. And if it keeps going and you keep like playing this out as far as possible, it kind of makes sense that there would be levels to the kind of intelligent life that exists in the universe beyond our comprehension.
Yeah.
Have you talked to Terrence Howard? Do you know his theory about how planets are created? That it's just things ejecting from the sun over billions and billions of years, and that there's a Goldilocks zone where you can create life.
Right.
And that's where the people are.
Yeah.
And then as this Goldilocks zone gets, you have to be super technologically proficient in order to control your environment to the extent that you no longer require the sun in order to keep you alive. That kind of makes sense if Nibiru's out there past Pluto.
Oh, it makes a lot of sense.
It makes
Shout out
sense
to
that
Terrence Howard, because I just talked to him a couple hours ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, so we were talking about wave conjugations and everything.
Fucked me up for like 3 days. I left this podcast for 3 days. I was like, God damn. First of all, how the fuck is he so smart? Like, how would you ever imagine that a dude who's an actor on a television show or in a movie is that smart? Like freaky smart.
Right.
But his theory about the creation of planets, I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Oh, it makes a lot of sense.
We watch stuff fly off the sun all the time. And if this matter over time would coalesce and become a planet.
Yeah, it creates an accretion disk, and everything in space creates accretion disks. So once that
What is that word? Accretion disk?
Accretion, yeah,
what does
accretion
that mean?
disk. So once you have a certain amount of mass in space, it instantaneously, on its own, wants to create this circular, like the shape of our Milky Way galaxy, wants to start circling and swerving around itself. And then as it does that, it begins to create friction. As that friction increases, the matter begins to collapse in towards each other, all right, based on its own energy, and then it forms a ball. And that then builds and attracts more mass until it builds into a moon or a planet or whatever. Yeah.
What do you do when you encounter flat Earth people?
Oh man, I just try to be quiet. I just tell them, look, it's not my thing. I remember Flat Earth Society offered me money years and years ago, and I was like, no, I don't believe the Earth is flat. I'm not getting involved with this. And they really attacked me hard, death threats and everything else.
They get very upset.
Yeah,
I do not understand. I just think it's people committing to an idea.
Yeah,
it just doesn't make sense.
Well, it's a religion now. They turned it into a religion. Anytime that people can attack you so brutally over that, I mean, I'm on live talking about quantum physics, and they're in the chat. The Earth is flat. The Earth is. I mean, so that's. It's like, I mean, one guy.
I'm fascinated by it because
it's interesting.
Because it's the ultimate conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
The ultimate conspiracy theory is that we are all on a set, and that the Earth is flat. It's a disc. There's a wall. The government's aware of it. They won't let you pass a certain distance. Yeah, there's ice walls.
Yeah.
And that space is just lights in the sky.
Right. That's it. And the sun is a bulb. And all this kind of stuff. It's wild.
And it's attached to a version of Christianity, which is very interesting.
It is. It's tied into Christianity, the 6,000-year-old theme. The Earth is only 6,000 years old. The reason why people think the Earth is 6,000 years old is because most of the tablets are 6,000 years old. And the Bible was written from the information that came from tablets. So that's as far back as anybody's quote-unquote knowledge seems to extend. That's where the 6,000-year-old theory comes from. But they've taken that thing and turned it into a religion. I remember one guy DM'd me, and he was going off and telling me he was going to shoot me in the head and all this stuff. And I said, let me ask you a question. If there's no atmosphere, then what are you breathing right now? He goes, what do you mean? I'm breathing oxygen. I said, well, that's a gas. Gas doesn't exist. I said, well, then you should be dead then, because you're breathing a gas. I said, what else are you inhaling when you breathe? He goes, oxygen. I said, well, no, you're breathing in, helium, krypton,
mostly
all these
nitrogen.
Nitrogen. I said, you're breathing in all these other gases. Oxygen is only around 21% of that. Otherwise, you'd be dead. So he couldn't tell. I said, did you graduate from high school? He said, no. I said, I stopped talking. So that's when I realized, don't waste your energy on these people.
Well, there's a lot of dudes, unfortunately, who just get on YouTube and they listen to very charismatic people talk that don't know what they're talking about, which I do all the time. But they do it in a way where they pretend they know something is true that's not true.
Yeah.
And people get sucked into it.
I know.
And I just don't understand why you would think that Earth is the only one out of all these things that we've observed that's flat.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense. And I think, this is respectfully to all these people that believe that, I think it's a giant waste of time.
It is.
I think concentrating on the shape of the Earth, even if it was flat, who fucking cares?
It means nothing.
Look at what's going on out there. It would be kind of crazy if it was flat. That would kind of like bolster the idea that we're the shit, and that we're just so much more powerful and advanced and special than everything else in the universe, because we're the only ones that exist on a flat plane.
Right.
But the whole thing is just so insane. Yeah. Just what we know about the physical universe itself, and about atoms, and just what we know about all the matter that exists in our lives is insane.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, obviously, they haven't tapped into, even forget quantum. They standard physics. They don't comprehend it, and so because of that, they're lost. I mean, satellites don't exist obviously to them. So
that's a kooky one.
I remember Hurricane
satellites
Maria.
don't exist is a kooky one. Like, bro, you can watch them.
I mean, it's crazy. Hurricane Maria comes and destroys the Caribbean, and I unfortunately had some loved ones that were involved in that. And I posted a picture of the hurricane because I was raising money for hurricane supplies, and they were commenting and attacking. That's a fake image. It doesn't exist. I'm like, wow.
Let me ask you this: how much of that is bullshit? Like, how much of that is government, either entities from other foreign governments, where they jump into these subjects to make people seem really stupid? And when people say something really stupid, if they have, one of the things they like to do is put a foreign flag, like American flag rather, in their little their profile.
They always have that,
and they're just saying that dumb as shit. And I'm going, I don't know if this is a real person. I think it's not. I think it's one of those things that's designed to muddy up any discourse about anything.
Yeah, it's a psyop. I'm telling you, I told people a long time ago this whole flat Earth thing was a CIA psyop.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Visceral reactions. Joe Rogan's expected. We've all seen him clash with Eddie Bravo quite a bit. And I just want to preface this with, I am not a flat earther. I am not in that group. I'm not in it. Actually, I'll tell you my theory. My theory is a little different. I'm almost in the middle. And I don't mean that it's a half circle or something like that. I'm thinking about something else completely. And it kind of makes sense with all the things that Rogan has touched on and so many different people have touched on. But we'll talk about that a little later. But again, for these guys to be talking about godlike beings fashioning people, possibly being beings of light that let go of their corporeal body, that can incarnate at will in and on any plane they desire and into other dimensions. For them to just be like, yes. And in fact, he can go from the 5th dimension to the 4th dimension. And he comes down here and he teaches us his name was Thoth, and then he goes off into the other dimensions, and it's quite spectacular. Yes, it actually happened. Yes, of course it did. For them to be so like, this is real, and then to get into even touched on Terrence Howard's theory. I know a lot of you think he's a genius. I haven't seen the actual proof. I've heard a lot of talk. I understand completely. This guy talks quite a bit, and he makes a lot of sense. And for some reason, we don't call Billy Carson a genius. We should. If we're calling Terrence Howard and Kanye West and all these people, we're calling them geniuses. I think Billy's in the genius realm too. Just saying. And I think at a certain point, you're going to have to call Joe Rogan a genius too. I'm sorry. I think we're going to have to do that. I don't know. I don't know if I want to, but I will. If we have to. So they're even touching on Terrence Howard's theory, and that's all acceptable. Joe Rogan, it just seems so weird that the only thing that's just completely off limits, it's just like, oh God, oh no, I don't touch that thing, is flat Earth. That seems so weird to me. And it doesn't make me think that the Earth's flat. Again, not a flat earther, but I just found it very odd. And especially the remark of, did you graduate from high school, when he was talking to one of them? And this guy said no. And that's when he was like, I'll shoo this person away. They didn't graduate from high school. Because believe me, with everything he's saying right now about tablets and Thoth, he could be talking to somebody who has a PhD, and they'll look at him and be like, did you graduate from university? Did you graduate from university with honors? Have you written a peer review study yet? And he'll be like, well, no. And they'll be like, okay, get out of here with what you're saying. I just think that's such a, I don't know. I don't know. I never do that with anybody. I don't think Terrence Howard is a genius, but at the same time, I'm like, well, he doesn't have to go to an Ivy League school and graduate to be a genius. Jack Parsons did shockingly incredible things in rocketry, and there was no courses for rocketry when he did all that. So I never question. I don't even know where Elon Musk graduated from. Same with Bill Gates. I have no clue. You just can kind of see the results. You see when they talk, they're obviously intelligent, right? So I really don't feel like you have to. And plus, I've met so many people who are millionaires who just didn't graduate from high school. So I never take that into account. The fact that that's where he went with it, when his business is talking about the Anunnaki and ancient tablets and stuff, it just seems so weird to me. So weird. I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one. Maybe it's like, oh yeah, you gotta graduate from high school to understand the Anunnaki. It's like, You just have to read some books on your own time. These books aren't even available to you in school. And to act like he has this overstanding of physics. And just so you know, when it comes to physics, only thing I ever got an A in, okay, A plus actually, was physics. So I understand physics really well. I don't know why. Basic math, not that great. Physics, I do it no problem. I don't flaunt it around though. Just then, but I don't flaunt it around regularly. But yeah, I just found that very interesting. But also, let's just get into it. You know, Joe Rogan brings up the fact that, like, oh, with all that we know about the earth, about atoms, and like that has nothing to do with the earth being round or flat. And then to say, who cares? Here's the thing. Again, not a flat earther, but when you come to who cares if the earth is flat, that's a big thing. That would be a very big thing. It would be a mind-bending thing. There would be some scientists who might do something bad or might just, just lose it if they found out that that was true. Okay? I'm not saying I believe it, but I'm just saying. I just found it very odd that they're just both like, oh, yeah, those people. Now, again, tell me about the Anunnaki and how they converted us from monkeys into people. And then on top of it, he goes and talks about how it's linked to Christianity. Well, it's not linked to part of Christianity. It's in a scripture where they just talk about, I believe, and again, not into that whole world, so I don't know it off by heart like everybody else does who's a part of that world. But there's like a firmament, some kind of dome, a firmament of some kind that they talk about in the Bible. You're sitting around reading ancient text. That's in an ancient text. What's the big deal? You can consider what Thoth did about transferring from dimension to dimension, but you can't accept that? I find that so weird. So weird how you can have one but not the other. And again, it's funny because they talk about being a little religious to things, and that to me sounds a little religious to things. I'm a Christian, and I can still be open to all of this weirdness. I'm still open to all of it. In fact, you're going to see how deep it goes because I'm going to tell you my theory right now. We'll touch on government psyop real quick for them to both move on to the fact that it's a government psyop. Tucker Carlson said something very interesting in an interview. He said the one thing that it seems like the elites or the government is really trying to do above all else is trying to convince you that the supernatural doesn't exist. I'm not saying that that's how Joe and Billy feel at all, but I think of that when I think of this whole thing, discrediting things as psyops and whatnot. When you're just a regular person who's talking about things that could clearly be psyops. We have no clue. Here's my theory. When I say I'm in the middle, I think, because here's the thing. They talked about Antarctica, like, oh, there's some wall and the government knows about it. Hey, man, go to Antarctica and see if various governments don't stop you immediately. It could be a Russian guy, a Chinese guy, American, Canadian, Polish. Everybody across the globe agrees you as a regular person are not walking and exploring Antarctica. Bar none. We will show you where you can walk to. We'll show you what you can be around. And we will put a hard fence, not a literal fence, but a hard stop on where you cannot go. And all the governments agree on that. That's a little weird. They can't even agree whether or not Israel and Palestine should be blowing each other up. But they can all agree that you shouldn't go to Antarctica. I think that's kind of weird. Here's my theory. Not Tucker Carlson, sorry. Joe Rogan has talked about, we're going to get real conspiracy. This is how open I am. Joe Rogan has talked about how Bob Lazar was talking about how Earth is a soul farm. Okay. Soul farm. I'm open. Okay. It's a soul farm. Maybe, here's the thing. Maybe the Earth is much bigger than we know. Maybe it's much bigger than we've been told. And maybe there is some kind of wall around. But if you go beyond the wall, you don't fall off. It's not like you're in a dome and all of a sudden none of that. There's just more ocean. There's just more lands, more continents. Because you are in some kind of farm. How do you know you're not in some kind of slave colony? Right now, if you go to Foxconn, you will find people who are in a building building iPhones and they're not allowed to leave. They are slaves. You'll find people in the Congo drilling out cobalt, and they're dying doing it. They have to do that. You will find people in situations that seem like slavery all over the world, and we all get to just chill. We just got phones. No problem. We just got phones. We got tools. Don't ask me why I got a tool like that next to me. We got all sorts of things. But all those people, they have to do the work, and none of us bat an eye about it. How do we know that that's not what's happening with us? How do we know that around this, let's say Antarctica was actually all around us like that? How do we know we're not the Foxcom? How do we know we're not the Foxcom? How do we know we're not the people doing the cobalt? And there's some people outside that are living hundreds of thousands of times better than we are, and they don't bat an eye about it. They just go, yeah, those are the people. Yeah, those people. My people exist, and my people are directly linked to the Anunnaki, and those people are linked to apes. I don't know. I don't even know what they are. I've never seen one before, but I know they're in there, and the things that they make, we take, and their souls, we use the energy from their souls. We use their negative energy, and it powers our whole society here. That's all I know. Whatever. I'm just saying, I know it sounds like a long shot, but I'm open. I'm open to thinking about things. I don't know. So I don't think the earth is flat. I don't think it's flat. But there could be some stuff going on. And I'm not shooing away any ideas. You know, if you've watched this channel for a while, you know I don't think the most about Terrence Howard. But I listened to the podcast 4 different times, just so you know. And I've been researching every single person that he brought up. So, just so you know, like, I'm open. But I just found it really weird that they weren't open to that idea at all, that the earth is flat. I don't know. I feel like there's some ideas, barring disgustingness, there's some ideas that if you cut yourself off you could be cutting yourself off from the answer, you know? So it's like maybe something within that theory that these guys have, this flat earth society, maybe there's something in there that you can actually go, oh, this is actually really true, and bring this over to round earth society. And round earth society can actually use it and be like, oh yeah, okay. Like maybe there's something missing. But if you just go, this is a roadblock, we don't pass here. Nah, I don't play that with thought, you know? Again, barring disgustingness, you know what I mean? Depravity and things like that. But just saying, I just found it really weird. That's the end of my TED Talk, guys. I just wanted to say that. Let me know what you guys think about this whole thing. What do you think about Billy Carson, and what do you think about this podcast? I'm on my second listen, I'm just starting my second listen. I find it very interesting. It has inspired me to go find some Billy Carson content and actually listen to, you know, I don't know if he has some documentaries or whatever, but I want to start listening to his stuff a little more and seeing where he's coming from and really finding out what he's reading and researching to come to these conclusions, because that will tell a person, everything that you need to know about a person. That's why I'm doing it with Terrence Howard as well. Anyways, guys, you heard it. You heard my theory. Okay. It's my crazy theory. The earth is much bigger than we know. We're the little colony that has to do all the work, and there's just super demon elites all around us, and they're just like, yes, negative energy, give them more war, yes, fill my glass with souls, you know. Anyways, guys, like, subscribe, turn on the notifications, helps the channel tremendously, and other than that, I'm out.